Hello everyone, today in this video we will fight against the atmospheric of our world around us, and this time we will discuss the very controversial issue, especially recently under attack of the leftist pseudo-historians and pseudo-writers, because the leftists, they are ideologically motivated, so they cannot be called real historians, and people from all over the political spectrum who are indoctrinated and ideologically motivated while writing their books, they cannot be regarded as real historians. So some pseudo historians currently attack heavily in recent decades concept of the lost cause. Concept of the lost cause is something that can be described as the southern view. People from southern US states, former Confederate States of America, so the South that wanted to create their own state and make a secession happen from the Union. And that's why civil war in the United States happened from 1861 till 1865 it lasted, costed lives at least 700,000 of US Americans or even maybe more. And now there is a huge debate what was the real reason. Of course, officially political reason that is exposed the most in media and in many works about this event is that slavery, so abandoning the slavery by northern states, was the main reason on why the southern state wanted to declare independence, and they did it, and the civil war started very bloody. But one has to take into account that in one state that joined Union in 1861, slavery was still allowed. This was actually Kansas. And one has to also remember that slavery in the South was actually in decline. What we can see analyzing the economical data of the southern states, and there were many people who were actually freed by their own white owners, blacks, and made incredible career in business and in enterprises. And these black people who were awarded the freedom from their previous owners, they were also having their own black slaves who were identically black as them. So we see that, for instance, in New Orleans, some of the owners of the shipyards and so on. But we also see that southern states also experience huge wave of immigration from Europe or from Mexico of free people who were employed as labor workers in agriculture and in different sectors of the industry that was under the development in the years before the Civil War started. So we see that this slavery issue was not so simple, it was complex, equally complex on the south and equally complex on the west, as all economical processes that we can observe in the societies that were under the transformation. Of course, different level of transformation into industrial society was observed on the south, and different level of the transformation of the society into industrial one was observed on the north. It's normal. But the main reason of the civil war, why it erupted, was that southern states wanted to preserve their autonomy. Because we should remember that Americans those days, when you ask them about their identity, firstly they declare the stronger identity to their own state. Later they were telling you that they are Americans. So for instance, they were telling you, I'm from Louisiana, I'm from Virginia, and so on. So we see that the autonomy of states within the United States was much larger than now. And we see already in the years that are preceding the Civil War that the Washington government was really trying to limit the autonomy of the states, and southern states didn't want to accept it. Of course, that's why it was one of the main reasons of the Civil War. Another reason was different politics towards the customs regulation for the goods from Europe, especially weapons and steel production items connected with steel industry, because Americans wanted to develop their own steel industry on the north mainly, so they didn't want for some time having competition from the European product, German, English and French mainly. So of course custom regulation went into play, and European powers just introduced customs fees on the cotton. That was one of the main export goods from southern states. So plantators of cotton and producers within the textile industry on the south, of course, were not happy because of this egoistic act of the northern states towards the southern states. It was another reason for the civil war, not so much slavery itself. That was actually in decline even on the south, because the cheaper than the slave and more efficient is normal worker who is convinced that he or she is free, and they work actually for themselves, and their employers do not care about them after their work, because they do not have any obligations to do so. But in the case of slavery, the owner should take care of the slave accommodation and feed them. Yeah, we know that the level of the, I would say, prosperity or living conditions, one should say, to depict it better, of slaves was different, but all owners needed to take care of the slaves, their accommodation conditions after their work. With the employee, actually, employer doesn't give a damn and doesn't care what happens with the employers after their working time. This is very important, what we should notice also with respect to our current time, that are officially slavery free. Are we really free? This is a good question to consider. And having into account many propaganda that was spread around the American Civil War, one needs to also mention the Siamese twins Chang and Eng, who were taken as small. That's why the name Siamese twins, of the twins that are born connected to each other with some part of the bodies, was taken from these two guys born in modern Thailand, which was called those days Siam. They were taken to United States as small kids in 1830s as a circus attraction. Later they made money and purchased some farms on the south of the United States. They married American ladies of European origin, so-called white. They had many sons, and these sons, it's also surprising, were serving as soldiers in the Confederate Army. So we see that the myth of only white Confederate Army that was splashing everything what was non-white, of color, and destroying everything purely racist, is not true. And we can also claim that when was this destructive march along the Mississippi of Union armies destroying the economy of the south of these regions, especially Tennessee, many owners of the slaves, Confederate ones, were giving arms to their slaves and fighting together, arm to arm with them, to defend their own houses and their own properties. So we see that the picture of American Civil War is much more complex than propaganda from any side of the ideological conflict wants to present to us. That's why I encourage people to study history on their own and discover the most interesting truth behind it. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.